Hey, welcome back to the internet's only free week-by-week guide to learning ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, a necessary skill for surviving today's modern go-go world. And we're talking verbs. We've moved into our full deep dive into verbs, and the first thing to know about Egyptian verbs is there's four kinds: strong, doubling, weak, and extra weak. And all of these verb types can be processed into the major tenses: past tense, present tense, participle. Some of them we have in English, some of them we don't. We looked at the infinitive verbs and the clue that the extra weak and the weak have an extra T at the end. That's how you can tell if you are in the infinitive form, that you're loving, not just love. All right, so knowing that there are four types of verbs, and right now don't worry about knowing what type of verb you're dealing with, let's just talk about the tenses. So we're going to talk about past tense now. So, much like the infinitive, the past tense has a formula. It's the verb plus the letter N plus a pronoun. All right, so what do we mean by that? Well, let's look at an example of a strong verb. Here we have sejem, to hear, the ear and the owl, sejem. So we can make that, instead of to hear, we can make that heard by adding an N, the water sign, and then a pronoun. Or we could actually add a noun or a proper noun, but we'll get into that next week. Let's just deal with pronouns for now. All right, so we've added an N at the end, and that's sort of like adding an ED to an English verb. And now we're going to add a pronoun. And just as a quick reminder, three of the more common ones: there's the horned viper, which is the pronoun for he; there's the bolt of cloth, which is the pronoun for she; and there is the basket with a handle, which is the pronoun you. All right, so I'm just going to use he, not to be sexist or to be inclusionary, but just simplicity is why we're using he for now. We're just using this as an example, but you can interplace any of the pronouns. So with the N and the he pronoun there, we have now changed to hear into he heard. Or if we were, using she or you or we or, any pronoun, or you can use a proper name. You can use a title like the king or me. My name is Scott. You could use, Scott heard. But because we have he, it becomes, instead of to hear, it becomes he heard. So we have hear, the verb. The N, water sign, is like having an ED, and then he as a pronoun. That's the basic construction of the past tense. So let's see how that flows through the other three types of ancient Egyptian verbs. All right, so we covered strong verbs. Next, we have doubling verbs. These are verbs that end in a double strong consonant. So a very common version, or one of these, is ma'a, to see, which has two vultures, both the A, the guttural ah sound. So again, we're going to add our N, the water sign, for ED, and we'll keep the same pronoun just for simplicity. So this makes to see, which is if you just saw the verb. Well, now we have he saw. The other thing about doubling is double verbs don't double in the past. So that's one of your clues. If you see a double verb like to see and it's missing one of its second strong consonants, well, that's a clue you're in the past tense. It's the only verb that changes any kind of spelling in the past tense. Everything else just gets an ed and the pronoun. So those are your big three hints. So here we have from to see to he saw. Obviously the word see doesn't get an ed in English, but love does, so that'll be a better example. So here's a weak verb. Weak verbs and extra weak verbs end in a weak consonant like an I. The I is often actually even omitted. This is why I have it in parentheses. So here we have love, mer. We've added the N and the pronoun for he, which changes this from love to he loved. Good version of a ed verb in English to make sense of that. And you'll notice that the pronoun comes after the verb. So you start with the verb, then you have the N, water sign ed, and then you have your pronoun. All right, let's look at the last verb class, which is the extra weak verb. So again, we have radi, or d, to give. Again, a verb ending in a weak consonant. So give becomes gave, the past tense of give. Sorry, it's not an ed example, but you get what I'm trying to say here. So radi plus ed, the n, and that pronoun, those are your clues that this verb is in the past tense. So to give becomes he gave, or she gave, or it gave, or you gave. All right, so looking back then at our 4 types of verbs, strong, doubling, weak, and extra weak, knowing that the way the tenses work, not every type of verb is affected. In the infinitive, the only verbs that are affected are weak and extra weak, which get an extra T. Your clue that you're in the past tense is because there's an added extra N at the end and a pronoun. Additionally, if you happen to be with a doubling verb, the doubling verb doesn't double. So that is your clue that you're in the past tense. So excellent. We've now covered infinitives and past tense. So we'll continue to go through the other tenses, some which occur in English and, well, some that don't. But knowing that to get into the past tense, to go from to hear, to see, to love, to give, well, we're going to, for each tense, add an N, water sign, and a pronoun. So this becomes your sort of cheat sheet for past tense verbs. Again, doubling verbs do not double in the past tense. They do double in the present tense, and many of the other tenses we're going to go through, but in past, they do not. And then weak and extra weak are much like strong verbs. There's no change to the actual verb. You're just adding that N and adding a pronoun. And I've just used the horned viper for he, just again for a sense of sanity. Maybe next week I'll use the bolt of cloth for she, just to be fair. All right, so there is your clue. N for ED, and love becomes loved. A great tense that's used a lot, like a real lot. So your homework is to basically copy this and create your own cheat sheet for past tense verbs because, well, most of Egyptian writing is about the past, like I did something something while I was alive. You'll get to the past tense a lot. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for liking. Thanks for being part of the class. I can't wait to see you next week for more Doodling with Purpose.